Mod fashion. How did it come to be, and why is the aesthetic so childlike? My name is Nicole, and welcome to Absolute Visual Value, where we use sociological thinking to understand the intimate material culture of fashion. So let's begin. Mod fashion emerged primarily in Britain, the United States, and France during the mid-1960s. For women, the clothing itself was very simple, geometric, and bright. It was a boxy silhouette in an A-line mini dress. Makeup emphasized rosy cheeks and these great big eyes. Women would even pluck the lower part of their brow to further achieve the big-eyed look. In advertisements, women were depicted with coy body language, and the body ideal was very thin with narrow hips, small breasts, long legs, and an overall very kind of girly aesthetic. Male mod fashion was also very bright. They used rich textures in these suits with skinny ties. Men were wearing turtlenecks. Basically, what you kind of picture the Beatles during this time is exactly what mod fashion is. Their haircuts were just like the Beatles, with long hair and an overall really boyish feel. Mod fashion was a reaction against a few key institutional changes. The first being the middle class was creating the styles themselves. Now, traditionally, fashion styles came from design houses and then were copied by retailers. Bordeaux, the very famous French researcher, talks about this production cycle a lot in his work on the sociology of culture. This entire theory was challenged because for the first time, styles were coming from the streets. They were coming from the middle class, and that had never been seen before. The reason is because the middle class had more disposable income than ever before. It was during the World War II economic expansion, and it really makes me think about how much creativity can happen when the middle class, the majority class, is doing well. And I just think that is a really key component in understanding kind of the uniqueness of the style and how it was so different than what we had seen before in the 50s and even early 60s. The second institutional influence was the state of politics. Political escapism influenced the infantilization, it's a hard word to say, that you see in the style. Now, although the middle class was economically doing very well, they actually felt very powerless still. And that's because there was a lot going on in the mid-1960s. Not to say there's not always a lot going on in history, but I think the media especially kind of honed in on everything happening. And what was happening was JFK was assassinated in 1963. There was the Vietnam War, the Cold War, racial and gender protesting. Young people really kind of wanted to escape all of the violence they were hearing about on a daily basis. So in a way, the infantilization came from really wanting to retreat from all of this really grown-up stuff going. I mean, you know, it can be criticized. Like, there can definitely be a criticized to the reaction, especially when you look at what other groups were doing during the same time. I'll get into that later. But this is the reality. People were tired of it, and they just wanted to go back to a simpler period. The third major institutional influence was the media. Specifically, the Beatles triggered mod fashion's popularization. I think anytime you get an individual or group who become an icon, they really represent something bigger than themselves. And I think that's just so true for the Beatles. They met the moment completely. They literally pushed people deeper into the mod movement, and it really influenced all of media, not just the people, but the media itself. It was reoriented around mod culture and kind of the different things that were associated with the mod group at the time. So it's a really important way to understand how it became such a big thing. And they had kind of the Beatles as trailblazers for the movement. Lastly, the gender equality movement inspired the miniskirt. Now, depending on where you are in the world, I can understand why the miniskirt may not necessarily be the first fashion piece you think of when you think of feminism. But if you practice cultural relevance, you'll realize the miniskirt was such an emblem of autonomy and female choice. For the first time, women were going to work, and they were really fighting against this stereotype that women had to be these conservative, I guess conservatism more so was associated with being a housewife, thinking about cooking, cleaning, and kids, and that was pretty much your life. So this was a direct response against that through clothing, through the miniskirt, to say we have more agency over our lives than that, and we are moving in a new direction where we get to decide what we want to do and how we want to do it. So what is the absolute visual value of mod fashion? What is it essentially saying? I think there are three main ideas that come from mod fashion: infantilization, escapism, and feminism. Now, there are definitely other institutional influences that were affecting different subsets of the population in the United States. In my next video, I want to unpack Black Panther fashion, which was a direct response against racial injustices happening and still happen in the United States. So please subscribe. I hope you got something out of this video. You'll be notified when the next video comes out if you subscribe. And please leave a comment if you have a question or you just want to say something positive. And also like this video too. It helps me grow and reach more people to talk about this stuff. Thank you again so much, and I'll see you next time.